What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome back. This is lesson number 8 for A Course in Creativity based on A Course in Miracles. So we are doing this morning. So this lesson is now playing Escaping the Projector Room. And it is based on lesson 8 of A Course in Miracles, which is my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This lesson is phenomenal. I really encourage you to sit with this and to just, whatever that means for you, right? You can sit with it by just contemplating it for a moment or two and bringing it with you through the day. Don't make a job out of it or anything like that. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's just a call to come back to the present moment, right? Just a call to come back. So this one in particular is beautiful for the way that I'm smiling because it just, this is one of my favorite, well, there's others, but among them is this one in terms of creativity. So what is this lesson trying to show us? This lesson is teaching us that a lot of what we think, so I'll read the lesson to you again. So my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. So a lot of what we think is busy. It's just preoccupation. It's being preoccupied with something. And we don't actually have the full understanding of what our thoughts are or what they mean in the bigger context of things. We don't tend to have that for quite a while after we think something or have a thought process in mind or pattern go through, that type of thing. So what we're really and actually doing and really only doing is focusing on what has been. And we learn that what we get into a series of re's. So re as in a suffix, re dash, right? So we return, we reinvest, I have the window open because it's a beautiful morning. It's a bit rainy, but it's beautiful. So you might be able to hear some birds joining us for this video. So just as an aside, there's some particularly rowdy crows and blue jays. So they're hanging out. It's fine. But this particular lesson, we get into re's. So we reinvest in ideas of who we are. We reinvest in ideas about the world. We reinvigorate these ego attachments, and we return to things on a regular basis. But what does it mean to just pull back from all of that and to sit in the present moment and think there, to think right here, right here? Right? We're not rushing to an association. We're not rushing to what has been. We're not trying to push things away. Just returning to this particular moment in time right now. Right now. The Course says there's an activity and an exercise, I should say, in here. So I'm going to read to you from the Course here so that you really wrap your mind around this. Okay, then we'll get to the creativity piece in a moment. But so to do the exercise today, you close your eyes. So you close your eyes to do the activity, and don't invest in the thought that you're thinking. Just notice. This is about noticing thoughts as they come to you. And so you introduce the practice period, the Course says, by saying the following. So I seem to be thinking about. Then name each of your thoughts specifically. So for example, I seem to be thinking about the name of a person, about name of an object, about the name of emotion, right? So this is really just about noticing what it is that we are thinking. This is about noticing things. And I think that once we get into this activity and exercise, we begin to uncover how much of our thought processes were just busy. Our minds were just preoccupied. I get busy-mindedness, right? Like I'm right there with you. Mine tends to be busiest between the ripe hours of 3 and 5 a.m. at any given time. Spin a wheel, see where it lands. Like that's, and a lot of that, I mean, more recently, thankfully, it has not been the case. Great, right? It's awesome. What I find is that getting into more meditative states during the day and really incorporating time to sink into this space, right? Especially if we're feeling worried. And this is what creativity does. And this is what, creating artwork or writing, right? Writing is my thing. Oh, love it. Writing or photography or painting, dance, anything that is creative that brings you into the moment, right? This is something that pulls you out of this busy-mindedness. It pulls you out of this place where you think that you're thinking about something, but all that you're doing is your mind is just busy. And we can even associate, we can give importance to the thoughts that we're thinking by placing a hierarchy on them, which is part of the importance of doing these exercises as an iterative as an iterative unfolding. So we look at these exercises and say to ourselves, okay, so my thoughts don't mean anything. And then you get to this one and you're like, oh wait, if they don't mean anything, then it's really just, it's all the past, right? It's all the past. So what is now? What is now? What is true right now? What is true right now is that we have a lot more peace available to us. I was trying to think of how to say it fancy or say it in a fancy way, but it was just that we have more peace available to us in the present moment, right? We don't arrive at that present moment with any expectations of how things should be. And, we can really start to see how much information is filtered through the ego, through this place of just watching your thoughts and pulling back and seeing them for what they are, right? Once we do that, once we pull back and we begin to see it through these exercises, we can see how much has been in the way and standing between us and that open-heartedness that allows us to just make cool shit. And it doesn't even mean that we make things that we share with other people. This is just, it's about picking up this guitar over here, picking up the guitar and just playing absolute nonsense. It's been a long time since I have played meaningfully, and my calluses, they're not there as much anymore. But it's, it's the freedom to do that. From what place are we creating things? Are we creating things through the filter of ego and what should be? And sometimes we do this to make statements. Art isn't just about being in the present moment and creating, from a non place. This is also, sometimes we create works with the intention of making statements to get people to care about things. So this isn't about, casting aside meaning. This is about releasing things within us that prevent us from being able to hear and see what it is that we're trying to say from the heart space, right? A lot of the best works that I've seen, it isn't a prerequisite necessarily for making art, but I will tell you that a lot of the art that I've seen that is deeply moving, first, you can tell it was first felt in here. It was first conceived of in the heart space. And when we believe these past thoughts about ourselves, we're not only believing in, the ego identity that we've come here with and developed while we're here. It's also that, we can start to believe the things about ourselves that tell us, they start to whisper to us, are you sure that you can do that? Are you sure that you deserve that? 100%. Are you sure? Because this happened before. And here's your to-do list for a couple days from now, because that will help you to stay away from the thing that will catch the ego working, right? It will catch the ego making identities and beliefs for you and stories for you that are just not true. So this process dials it back. And for me, it's been a process that's helped anxiety significantly, because anxiety really is just ego preoccupation. 90% of the things that I think when I'm anxious, never going to come to fruition. And there's also a way of uprooting those things, those anxious thoughts. Sometimes the mind just gets used to being busy, right? Sometimes the mind just gets used to being preoccupied. And when the ego is the mind in that way. And when the ego has nothing to attach to, it needs something, because there's an anxiety piece that it's been acclimated to almost. So when it's acclimated to this for so long, or through patterns and belief systems that we hold, it searches for something. So it looks for the closest thing, the lowest common denominator to find anxiety about. Right? To find anxiety about. There are so many times where I've been in those places, and it's almost a cognitive spin that we get into. It's a cognitive spin because we start to believe what we think. And what we don't realize is that what we think is actually the product of what we feel. Right? What we think is the product of what we feel and how we've attached to and identified ourselves with the emotions that we're having, as opposed to pulling back and being able to see it all, not just from a present moment perspective, but from the perspective of how true was this individual thought and this busy thought? How true was this historically speaking? Really and truly. right? When you pull back, a lot of the anxious thoughts that you have just aren't true. Even transitioning, I was like super worried about coming out and what that would mean and all these things. And what ended up happening was I was so worked up, and there are a lot of anxieties that come with coming out. This isn't me saying like, don't worry, it's fine. There are very real anxieties that people have for very real reasons. This isn't to undermine those. What I'm saying here is that a lot of the worries that I had just didn't happen the way that I was worried about. They didn't happen that way. And that's a very fortunate story. But there's also different ways of, for example, there's a particular stretch of road where there have been a significant number of accidents so far this year, several of them fatal. And every time I drive past that area, you see the different flowers and setup and things like that. So every time you drive through there, there's like an anxiety that can creep up if you're not careful, to the point where I've just started going a completely different way because it's such an anchored thing. And there's also something about collective anxiety and worry too, where you can feel that it becomes almost a thought form that sticks to a place. But what I'm saying here is that the anxieties that I have about driving that route have never produced anything there. And this isn't inviting something, but it's to say that anxiety pulls you out of the moment. It pulls you out of the now. And when you get back into the now, you realize, well, okay, that's just busyness. That's just busy thoughts. Because I can go a different way. I can do all of these different things that empower me and that speak more to what actually is, right? So, and anxiety produces emotions, not just mind emotions, not just emotions that you think about, but emotions that actually create a physiological biochemical response in your body that make you think that you are the emotion that you're feeling. And that can be really tricky to kind of pull out of as well. But this is anchoring ourselves back into the present moment. And creatively speaking, this to me is when we start to see how our mind has been working, this opens up a whole lot of possibility for us. Because if your mind is preoccupied with past thoughts, what would it mean to think something completely differently about something like, creative blocks, or to just sit in the present moment with a work that you've been struggling to finish, or that you are not so sure of? You're like, I don't know how this is going to go. And you're trying to get it done, and you're just pushing and grinding and all of these things. And your mind is preoccupied more than it is free, right? So this process can help with your own creative process. I've found this to be true, at least. If I'm stuck on a piece of writing, the best thing for me to do is to understand that I don't actually know what it's for, and that, it's okay to just to release it. I've been to different sushi restaurants, and one of them in particular in downtown Toronto had boats that they had on going around the around, I guess, like the chef's circle. I don't know what to call it, but the platform where they had chefs cutting the sushi, and they put it onto the boat, and it was a little water thing that was moving around. And so each one, you just got to pick and choose what you wanted, right? So you got to choose you ended up getting everything you wanted, but you didn't have to take on every single boat that came to you. You didn't have to take on or respond to every single boat that passed by, right? How hungry were you? So it was one of those things where this highlights that process for me, right? Creatively, we don't have to respond to everything that comes our way. We can pull back and just watch the opportunity and see how, where is this falling for us? Because sometimes too, I found that when it comes to creative projects and whatnot, you can get anything, right? Like some people, I think the phrasing that a lot of people use are feast or famine, right? When for me, it's just been about creating things and making things and understanding it differently. And, some folks have different opinions about that, and they're very right for the experiences that they've had. What I'm talking about here for me, though, is just that we can get into this place where we take anything as truth, right? And this is where if our mind is preoccupied with past thoughts and that sort of busy-mindedness, that will become a behavior that we then apply to other aspects of our lives. So we'll accept busy and confuse busy for something truly productive when it's ultimately incredibly disconnected from anything that we would be wanting to do. So, and this isn't to say that I've mastered this process at all. Like I said, there are still times with certain subjects and things where between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning, I'm up and running, right? So, but it's, healing is never done. Growth is never done. Like we assume that we reach this final point, stick a flag in the ground, and then that's it. We've won the healing. All the healing is ours now. And that's just not true, because we get to another layer and we realize that we are so deeply and profoundly human that it is a shocking tower moment if there ever was one. But what a beautiful remembrance, what a beautiful realization that everything you need is right now. That everything you need is right now. It's pretty amazing. And I say that as somebody whose intersections might convince you otherwise, but everything you need is now. It's right this red hot rockin' minute. So that is today's lesson, my friends. Escaping the projector room. This is one of my favorites. So just think about it in terms of that boat. You don't have to respond to every thought you think. A lot of it is just busy. A lot of it are just boats with sushi that you don't want. Oh, I love sushi so much. So good. All right, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you. Just remember, you do not need to respond to every single thought that you have. Your mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Think about it. All right. Take care, everybody.